I've been reusing my semi-hydro for a couple years now. Don't let the internet overcomplicate things. These easy steps I'm about to show you will keep your plants thriving while saving you money at the same time. I'm positive you were too scared to try this. Sometimes the internet can really overcomplicate things, and honestly, the only way to find out what's even true is to experiment. I simply don't have the time all the time to do things perfectly or ideally. So many times I skip steps or just make the best sense out of whatever research I did to fit the time and energy I'm willing to put out during plant shows. With that said, and without you probably even noticing, I've already completed step one, which is separating my semi hydro components. My pond setup includes a leca reservoir, so many times my semi hydro contains both leca and pond. So after collecting my dirty semi hydro, specifically Lechuza Pon is what I use, and leca from my local garden store. I start by separating the two using a mesh basket. I like to store them separately for ease of applications later on. I always look forward to this part of the process the most because I always find stray alocasia combs. But just to be clear, I use Lechuza for Hoyas as well, Anthurium as well as some philodendron. However, I know alocasias are quite tricky for most, including me, so I want to show you all how I've gotten mine to thrive using reused pon as opposed to new pon all the time. By the way, the Lechuza I'm using here is a little over 2 years old. Later in the video, I'll show you all the results of using this reused pon as opposed to new pon. And in case you have missed it, we're done the first step already. My substrates have been separated. If you're enjoying this process so far, please consider giving the video a like so more people like us can see it. I want to just pause for a minute to show you all the combs that I was able to collect having sifted out the leca. And in this video, I'm going to just give you all a quick preview of how I set those combs, and I want to show you how I'm going to clean out my alocasia comb prop box, which is a hot mess. I do grow them in semi-hydro, so I thought it would be fitting to feature how I clean it and set it up in this video. So you can see that reused lacquer also gets the job done once you clean it properly and prep your prop box properly. Here's a closer look at how riddled in green powdery mildew my comb prop box setup is. And by the end of this video, you'll see how quick and easy it is to get these back to looking like brand new. Also, a quick myth here is that green powdery mildew prevents your combs from sprouting. And I'm going to give you all a close up of how this is just not true. It is good practice to keep your prop boxes healthy and free of green powdery mildew for your personal health because it can cause breathing problems, especially if you're asthmatic. Side note, which I am. So, getting this clean and keeping it clean is always recommended, but gosh, life happens and this happens. But let me just zoom in here to show you all how this really is a myth because look at the roots on this particular comb. So besides growing three primary roots, it also has developed secondary roots and has started shooting. In case you're wondering if there's any correlation between using reused lacquer and the prevalence of green powdery mildew, me personally, I haven't seen a difference. Whether I use new lacquer or reused lacquer, at some point it's going to grow green powdery mildew. And from the onset, I will try to keep up using copper fungicide, but at this stage, I need to give it a full clean out, including the combs. The first thing I do is dump out my leca into the sifting basket that you saw me use to separate the Lechuza Pon from the leca. And this way I get to take a second look and make sure I didn't skip over any combs because I wouldn't want the combs, which is a living matter, to go through the same sterilizing process as the semi-hydro. Once that is completed, I just scrub out the trays using regular dish soap and a scrubbing brush. For the smaller cavities, I use a toothbrush. And the final step is spraying it with either 70% or 90% rubbing alcohol. This is the trays all cleaned out, and I just assemble it like this. I'll link everything in the description below if you guys want to give these prop boxes a go. I like to stock the rubbing alcohol that comes with the spraying feature or the spraying nozzle just for quick application so I could just spray each cavity very quickly in seconds. Side note, my prop boxes are mangled because I left it out in direct sun for too long to dry. So if you are getting these, don't leave it out in direct sun. These are all the combs that I'm going to clean as well. Remember, these are covered in a seed coat. Combs are very robust. I think people take that for granted. And I'm basically going to scrub this just like how I did the container using dish soap and water, because the seed coat is going to protect the life, for lack of a better word, inside of the combs. However, for the comb that is growing roots, I wouldn't want to damage the already established roots. So I set that one aside and I use a toothbrush to clean off the green powdery mildew with a bit of dish soap as well. And that gets the job done for me. And just to make sure I'm being thorough, I'm going to go in and spray it with some Captain Jack's cup of fungicide. And here comes the lazy man tip for sterilizing a semi-hydro, and that is by just boiling a kettle of water and emptying that into the two buckets that I've used to separate these substrates, making sure that all of it is submerged in boiling water and leaving it put until it naturally cools. I'll reveal later in the video what the internet says is the ideal practice or the correct way to do it, but this is what I've been doing. I haven't seen anyone else do it, but I've been doing this for over 2 years, like I said, and it works like a charm. While these are cooling, I'm going to go ahead and get some plant chores done, showing you all how I've been using this reused semi-hydro and the results. For example, this one that grew from corm is fully rooting out here. I'm not going to repot it. I'm just going to top that with some moss because, alocasia is going to be so fickle if repotted unnecessarily. Just like this. So not until those roots start coming out of the cup completely is when I would repot this. If you want some more alocasia tips, I'll link my alocasia video down below, which is loaded with tips and tricks I've learned over the years. In frame right now is my alocasia scalprum. I'm going to be sounding like a broken record, but this is also being grown in reused semi-hydro and is doing super well, pushing multiple leaves and is requiring backfilling now. But I don't have any semi-hydro on hand because I'm now sterilizing it with y'all. So I'm going to top it with moss like I did my alocasia longiloba before. Comment below if you've noticed this. When you add moss to the top and encourage rooting along the stem, your alocasia holds more leaves. I want to get into what the internet says is the ideal practice. So I did a quick search on ChatGPT, and basically the results that I got was that a 30-minute soak in hydrogen peroxide can do the same job, or boiling on the stove for 30 minutes. Like I said, I've never seen anyone do what I've done, and it's only through experimenting is how we get to find new ways of doing things. What I saw on YouTube and other fellow plant parents doing is actually baking their pon or semi-hydro in the oven as well for 15 minutes. So that's another unconventional practice that also works. In case any of these appeal to you, all of these seem to work fine for sterilizing semi-hydro. What I'm going to do next is set back up my alocasia comb prop box. I know it's a hot mess, but it works every time. It has not failed me yet. It is not like broken or anything. It's just pretty mangled. It does sit on the surface fine, so it's not toppling over or anything like that. But I know it could be more aesthetically pleasing, but it's getting the job done for me now. And I'm just going to refill it with leca that I had on hand already, that was already sterilized. So I'm just filling back each of the cavities with leca. And if you want a full like step-by-step guide to how to sprout alocasia combs, I'll be sure to link a short video for you all in the description as well for maximum success and just an easy way of doing it. Okay, so this is the tray all set up and ready to be put back into the greenhouse. I just have to add the combs that I've already cleaned as well, and I'm going to rehydrate the leca using just plain water, and I'll fold this about 3/4 the way up and allow the leca to reabsorb the water, rehydrate like I said before, and then the final step is just to place the comb on the top. So I'll give you guys a close-up of the water line in this tray so you can have an idea of how high I fill it up. So like that, so it's 3/4 the way up, so the leca remains hydrated all the time, and then when I add the cover it'll maintain moisture for indefinitely. So then I just grab my comb, put it the right side up, and just rest it on the top of the leca without it being submerged in water. Just like that. And on to the final steps. I'm just going to add this cover that I also cleaned and made sure, I treated it as well with a little bit of copper fungicide to make sure, I have it cleaned up properly so it'll last a lot longer. I would say after I do this full um, method, I probably don't have to clean this for maybe 8 months to a year even. I honestly can't remember the last time I had to clean my alocasia comb prop box. But anyway, I just fast tracked y'all to this phase where I rinsed the leca through after it cooled. I made sure the water ran clear and placed it back into storage. So I'm going to show you here exactly what I did with the pond. So I placed it into the mesh basket again and I'm going to rinse this until the water runs clear. So basically, the boiling water does all the sanitizing, it breaks down all the yuckiness and it just flows through the basket. After this clip, I will show you all the roots that have been growing in reused leca in some of my largest alocasia, just as proof of this method being effective, or for me anyway. And just to point out, the floating bits in the water that I'm dumping out is actually perlite. Sometimes I do amend the pond a little further, depending on, if it was a really fickle plant I was dealing with where, the Lechuza Pon couldn't by itself get the job done for me. Usually it's because of my watering habit. So sometimes I just add some perlite in just to give myself a little more buffering. Upon rinsing, I do agitate the pond just to make sure I'm getting it thoroughly rinsed out every time I add fresh water. And the final step is just to let it air dry, usually sun dry, before I pack it away. I'm going to show you all a couple success stories here of plants that I've actually had to rescue, and I used reuse semi-hydro to get them going. I'm just giving you all a quick glance at how I store these. I got these clear bins from PriceSmart, and this is my philodendron glorious in frame here that I had to rescue out of the garage a while back. If you saw my greenhouse updates, you will know that these plants were in desperate need of rescuing, and I was able to get it to reshoot for me in reused leca alone in that case. And here my Jacqueline is finally growing for me in reused pon and leca. So, I'm so happy this one actually has two leaves now. It usually has no leaves or one leaf, and you can see roots if you look closely establishing there. So I'm really happy that those have taken off. Here is a close-up of the root system of the largest alocasia, my alocasia green shield, that is growing in reused semi-hydro. It is just, doing wonderful for me. I can't complain at all. I would recommend using semi-hydro in general for alocasias because it actually provides excellent aeration and drainage, which keeps your roots oxygenated and helps to prevent rot. So was a big issue for me with alocasias, and that pretty much solved all my problems. Well, most of my problems anyway with this genus. And here's another I grew from comb that is just taking off as well. Overall, if you haven't tried semi-hydro, I would definitely recommend that you do so. Besides reducing your chances of getting root rot, it reduces pests such as fungus, gnats, or any other soil-borne pests that are growing that you're currently battling. Semi-hydro could actually help reduce your pest problem. It's also a pH neutral and stable substrate, which helps to promote stable growing conditions. The more stability our plants have, the more they thrive, and is reusable without losing structure, so it doesn't compact like soil does. You can also reuse semi-hydro indefinitely, which means you're going to save a ton of money along the way. And now you know how easy it is to clean and sterilize it. And most plants, it's such a versatile substrate that for me, most plants thrive in it. All in all, give it a try before you toss it. If you're still here with me, please consider subscribing. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.